The first presenters are Donia Pavone and Simona Holiday from IOM, who will be presenting the DTM and Partners Toolkit. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. I'll give you a short brief of how the DTM and Partners Toolkit came to be, and then I'll hand over to Simone to show you a few of the tools that you can find. This is going to be only an appetizer, of course. You can move to the next slide, Babette, please. But if you want more information or you want a guided session, we're very happy to give you a private one or a group one. So feel free to contact us. Babette will share our contact details. What you see here is one of the pages, one of the landing pages of the DTM and Partners Toolkit. And it's very cool because you can click on the different steps of this process, and I'll mention the process briefly later, and see a little bit more about that specific step and find the tools that relate to that step and so on. Next one, please. So what we're going to try to do in less than 10 minutes is going to tell you why and how the Partners Toolkit was developed. It had to do with the ground bargain, but also how it relates to PIM and the PIM influence on developing this toolkit. And then also to show you the main tools and understand where you can find the tools that you might need. Next slide, please. Just want to clarify the term partner because it's used in so many ways, but in the DTM and Partners Toolkit, it's really, a partner is really any organization, any agency, any institution or group, sector, cluster, working group that can use the DTM data for humanitarian response. So these are our partners for us. So it's really a cooperation between somebody who is a data provider like DTM, and then all the data users that use the data for humanitarian response. Next one, please. Why was the DTM and Partners Toolkit created or developed? Next one. Really, what DTM colleagues realized a few years ago is that there have been many cases in which DTM collects a lot of data, much more than just a number of IDPs. Or returnees or whatever they collect, but this data is not necessarily used as much as it could have been. So we felt accountable for not using this data. Next slide, please. So we try to understand why. Why is this not happening as much as we would like it to be? We realized that there are a few different reasons for that. We realized that we asked actually the partners, and we realized that often DTM does not collect the data that the partners need, not in the right way that the partners need it to be, or the partners just don't know where to collect the data. So we tried to find solutions. And how did we do that? Next 2 slides, please. How did we look at it? We looked at what already was out there, and we saw that PIM had already done a lot of the thinking behind this. We saw that, for example, PIM recognized the importance of the collaboration between IM and the sectoral expert in the case of PIM protection, but also that they had defined specific roles and competencies and skill sets in the competencies that Catherine mentioned probably before. We also saw that there was a shared process to ensure accountability and predictability based on the best practices, the PIM process you just saw in Catherine's presentation, but also the matrix clarifying what each IM system does. And also one of the biggest thing, the really great contribution of PIM, the common terminology. So clarifying what we mean when we use certain words. But we needed more. Click, please. We needed to go beyond protection. We needed to look at all sectors, not just protection, because DTM provides to all partners. Next. We also needed to clarify further roles and responsibilities of DTM and the partners. And we realized this was not a DTM only challenge, so we decided to work with others. Next one, please. So that's where the ground bargain working group under the ground bargain, ensuring data and analysis are useful and usable for response, that you can call Edward because Edward is unpronounceable. The working group made of a number of clusters, agencies, NGOs, initiatives, including PIM, GIPS, ACOPS, and so on. and donors themselves. And we worked together, next one please, to realize really that we had a common process already, and most of us already use certain steps in the same order or in slightly different order. And we could account on that process to ensure predictability. Next one. But also, and that was important, that we need at least 4 actors around the table to do evidence-based decision-making, which is really what we wanted to do with providing data for response. We needed IM data experts. We also needed cultural and context experts. We needed subject matter experts, not just protection, but all subjects. And then we needed decision makers. If only one of these is missing, then we don't have what we want and what we need. Next slide, please. So we took the results of the EDAUR working group under the Grand Bargain, and with some of the same partners and additional ones, we developed the DTM and Partners Toolkit for cooperation. Next one. And so I'm going to hand over to Simone and mute my mic. Over to you, Simone.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Dania. Hello, everybody. As Dania emphasized, and also Catherine, there's a clear need to bring together all these different skill sets and subject matter experts so that we can have a more interdisciplinary conversation that leads to decisions on identifying data needs, having appropriate data management, analysis, and responsible use that meet our humanitarian obligations. But how do we work together more efficiently and understand our respective disciplines to meet this common goal? So the toolkit has some valuable resources, whether they're guides, pocket handbooks, even SOPs, standard operating procedures that have already been vetted by clusters and areas of responsibility. Let's take a look at some of my personal favorites to share with colleagues who are considering on embarking on a protection enhanced data collection activity. So down the rabbit hole we go. The toolkit, the guide, and you see the link there, is a good place to start. It does not work on a search function. Instead, it has keywords that are already identified. So these already identified keywords, you can find words such as DTM for protection, DTM for disability, DTM for intersectoral analysis, DTM for PSCA, and also a full repository that has links to other resources per the data collection lifecycle. Next slide, please. So in bringing together all these perspectives and keeping partners, as Dania mentioned, at the center, so keeping all these various subject matter and cluster partners at the center, how can we make this mix with so many interests, this complex data lifecycle, and all these steps more predictable? Click, please. So you can click through each of the steps, and the page gives you supporting documents on shared approaches. Click, please. Including some comic strips that emphasize key steps to consider. For example, do no harm checklist and a link to it. How to be sure to work with the Country Information Management Working Group and specific templates to guide us through that process. The nice thing about the comics is that it draws you into reading, and then it emphasizes key areas for collaboration and then gives links to tools and frameworks within the comics. Next slide, please. Another good place to start is the protection page. So here we have presentations in multiple languages, country presentations, and then DTM for specific sectors, CCCM, disability inclusion, child protection, mine action, education, GBV. Also some more frameworks on data sharing and a field companion for how to do sectoral questions for a location assessment. Next slide, please. Just as one example, some standard operating procedures that help in decision-making related to including or whether or not to include protection, GBV, child protection indicators in an upcoming data collection activities. And so this is a real step-up approach. Next slide, please. I think this is also pretty valuable because it takes us from or to the actual indicator, gives a narrative description, a graphic, and even the question and observation method used to collect this indicator. And on this slide, we use the example of access to food distribution by women and girls. So it's a quite specific tool related to a specific indicator, and it shows how it can be communicated, collected, and visualized. Next slide, please. This is the last example I'll share, and there are many more, but this is also a well laid out and easily accessible pocket guide. I always love those. It has a space for country colleagues to include information on referral pathways in the event GBV is encountered or GBV incidents are encountered. Of course, that's not it, but just to share with you some of the utility and the valuable tools that are included in the DTM toolkit. If you have any questions about accessing the toolkit, feel free to reach out. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Simone. Babette, I saw Edward has a question in the chat. Do you want us to answer now?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Edward, hi. Look, there is an interesting, it's an interesting question. We gave presentations exactly about DTM and protection. And what we realize and we explain to our colleagues is that the DTM can collect information that feed to a number of categories of the PIM matrix. So somebody, Miran, suggested population data category, and that's definitely the most clear one. It's also the one that the PIM matrix has an example on. But in reality, you can use the DTM to collect information that you can even fit into your protection analysis that you would, usually get from a protection monitoring system. So it's really important not to confuse DTM for a protection monitoring system, because it's true that it goes in rounds, but it's really specifically used for with observation and key informant. So there's certain things that you will never get from the DTM key informants. And that you need for protection monitoring. So there's certain information you can bring in on needs, on resources, on services, but you always need to complement that with other with information you get through your other tools, your other data collection exercises. I hope that was satisfying.
Yes, and there's another question I'm seeing. How to access information, how to access information to DTM, and does the constant companion referral pathway toolkit work for child protection and case management services also, and is it live in DR Congo?
Okay, the last one is a constant companion referral pathway is a very short document that explains how what you need to have in place and what the roles of the DTM colleagues would be, or the data collection people would be. It's not a data, and it's not a case management system at all. You can see it. I can share the link later on the chat. But it's not. Maybe you're thinking of something different. It's not a case management system, and definitely DTM does not do case management systems. So you would just have a clear understanding of what is the role of data collectors in terms of information provision or not, and what is their, how do you do referrals if you have to do referrals without causing harm. So that's the purpose of that. And then the other question is how to access information from DTM. So if you're looking at the data from the DTM data collection, the website that I'm going to share as well on this chat is the general DTM website, where you can then select the country you want for data sets or for reports, and you can download Excel sheets for data sets, or you can download reports. It's important to note not all data is there. Whatever is considered confidential or could put people at risk is not on a public website. But all the other data are there. You don't even need a password.
Okay, and I think we can do one more question quickly. Does the constant companion, oh no, we've already had that. Oh, it's Steph who is explaining this point, whether the pocket guide to which actors do what and where could be useful in child-friendly spaces, not just for data collectors. Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand.
I think it's just an explanation of the question. Yeah, just whether it can be more broadly used, I think, in child protection.
Steph, I'm going to share the website, and Babette will share my email, so we can talk about that later on whenever you have had a chance to look at the website. So maybe that clarifies. Let me share the website with you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Super.
I think that's great. Thank you so much, Daunia and Simone, for this great presentation and insight into the tools that you've created. I'm sure that if anybody has more questions, they can reach out to you. And like I said earlier, we will share all the information of the speakers with you at the end, so that you can you can contact them if you want to and ask more questions.
Well, thank you for letting us give this presentation, because we really, the DTM and Partners Toolkit really owes a lot to your colleagues from the PIM group, because we used a lot of their work, really. One of the things we have is a UNOHAM checklist that takes really a lot from the PIM and OCHA framework for data sharing in practice, for example. So thanks again.
Yeah, that's great. Good to hear. And thanks so much